Hey guys, welcome to Pixel Talk. I am Corbin Stuckey, and today I'm here to give you a review on this film called Turbo Kid. Turbo Kid is this Canadian film that is set in this apocalyptic version of 1997, and it revolves around this character that we only know as the Kid, and he lives in this world where like water is like a dying resource, and like you almost have to pay a lot to get water and survive, and it's almost really hard to find. And one day, while he's in this apocalyptic wasteland, he comes across this girl named Apple, and he starts to develop like a friendship or relationship with her, even though she's like really weird at first, but when you start to get to know her, she's like very likable. And then when Apple is kidnapped, the Kid comes across this technology that allows him to become his favorite superhero, Turbo Rider, and it becomes this awesome 80s superhero called Turbo Kid. Now, the one thing that I liked about this film is that this, when you look at it, is like an 80s film. Like, this film could have easily been made in the 80s. There's a lot of practical effects, and watching it, like, it has, like, that 80s feel to it. It has an 80s soundtrack, and there's just a lot of hints and Easter eggs that make you realize that the people making this film must have grown up in the 80s. It really does make sense that this film takes place in 1997, because considering that it's like an apocalyptic future, and if this film was made in the 80s, 1997 seems like a pretty reasonable future. It's several years in the future. So yeah, I absolutely love this like 1997 setting, and it just made total sense. Also, a lot of the characters in this film are very likable. The Kid is likable. I mean, he's just this kid. He's like reading comic books. He wants to become his favorite superhero. It's a very relatable character, and me as a comic book reader, I enjoyed this character. It almost reminded me of the character Dave from Kick-Ass. Like, he wants to become a superhero, except it takes place in this apocalyptic future. It's very similar to Kick-Ass. And also the girl in this film, Apple. Oh my god, like, she was like really kind of creepy at first, but once you got to know her, she was like a very, very likable character, really funny. And there's also kind of like this like self-lesson behind this character. Like when you meet people, they can throw off like really bad impressions, but like once you get to know them, you're like, oh, I actually really do like this person. And like that's kind of like the lesson that revolves around this character, is like, even though like, you know, she's kind of creepy at first, and you know, you kind of want to like stay away from her, you get to love this character as like, you know, you get to know her. And that's a really cool lesson that they put in this film. This film also has like a really, really good villain. This villain named Zeus, he's just kind of like this ruler of this wasteland, and his main motive is just finding a way to make water. However, you find out in the film the way that he's making water, and I'm not going to spoil it, it's very sinister and dark, but it's almost like smart at the same time, and it makes total sense. Like I said, the film has a lot of practical effects, and it's effects that you would see in the 80s. Like, there's a lot of gore in this movie. Like, it was very, very gross, but it was awesome at the same time. The gore is the most entertaining part of this film. If you are one of those people who love gore, you are absolutely gonna love this movie. There's so much of it, and I'm really glad that the gore was really practical in this movie, because like nowadays in movies, they add like FX effects where the gore is like digitally put in there and it just doesn't really look real, but the gore in this film looks so realistic, and I absolutely loved it. Come to think of it, there wasn't even that much CGI in this film. Actually, I don't even think there was CGI in this film. The only thing CGI related in this film, and I wouldn't really say it was CGI, was like where the Kid, he finds this weapon that belongs to his favorite superhero, Turbo Rider. It's almost like that weapon that Mega Man has, like where you point it at somebody and there's like pulses coming out of it. It's the same essential weapon, and there's a scene in the film where like he raises his hand up in the air, and there's like that classic 80s light strike, and it almost reminds me of like, you know, something from He-Man or Thundercats. Like, that's the only real thing that I can think of that was like really computer generated in this film. Besides that, there is not a lot of CGI in this film. Everything is really practical, and I absolutely enjoyed that. I also liked a lot of the props in this film too. Like I said, the Kid has like this turbo glove that shoots out like pulse energy, but like it runs out of batteries sometimes, and he's forced to use like the resources around him as like, you know, weapons. And a lot of the weapons in this film are like okay, there's a scene in the movie where like he takes a gnome and he duct tapes it around this stick and he gives it to the girl. I thought that was pretty hilarious. And there's also a scene in the movie where like one of the characters kills somebody with an umbrella. It's just random items that they find in this wasteland, and it's really hilarious, and it's really effective, and I absolutely love that. The only thing that I have a problem about this film, and it's not even a real issue, it's just something I read on Wikipedia, and it's not even even being marketed like this, so I don't even know why I'm even talking about this, but I read on Wikipedia that this film is an action film, and yes, it is an action film, but it also says that it's a horror film. Now, this is not a horror film. This is an action adventure film, has a lot of 80s nostalgia with, like, you know, Mega Man themes, Thundercats, Mad Max, but it's not a horror film whatsoever. And I think why people think it is a horror film is because there's a lot of gore in this film. Now, just because a film has a lot of gore in it does not mean that it's a horror film. Like, this film doesn't really take itself too seriously. It's kind of in the middle of, like, you know, dark, serious, and really funny. It's mostly just kind of funny, and it's like an adventure film. So yeah, guys, I would definitely recommend that you check out this film. I think it's in only select theaters right now, probably mostly in Canada because, like, this is a Canadian film, but it is on demand. So if you want to see this movie, you can rent it on iTunes, you can get it on demand. However, I would push you guys, like, to see this in a theater with friends. Like, if you know a theater that is showing this movie, definitely go check it out in the theaters. I think it would be a really good time at the movie theaters. It really sucks that this movie was not playing at a theater in my hometown. I actually saw this movie like 30 minutes ago by myself. I rented it on iTunes, I watched it in my house, and I wish I saw it in a movie theater. But you know, it's like one of those small indie films, so like I really had no choice. However, I'm gonna bring this movie over to a friend's house tonight so we can watch it. I would definitely recommend seeing this film with a bunch of friends because, like, I think it's one of those films that should be, like, really appreciated and remembered, and I really want this to be like a cult classic someday. Alright guys, thank you so much for checking out my review of Turbo Kid. Like I said, go see this film, it's freaking awesome. Comment down below what you thought of this film if you saw it, like the video, share it, and please subscribe to Pixel Talk if you haven't yet for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and gaming content. Thank you guys so much. I am Corbin Stuckey, and this is Pixel Talk.